Okay, good evening. Pastor Justin, would you mind giving the invocation this evening?
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and audience. Just as a focus of our prayer tonight, I wanted to share from Micah 6:8, where the Lord says, what does he require of us but to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God? So with those words, let's pray together. Father, we praise you, Lord God of heaven and earth. Lord, you are our creator and redeemer. We're grateful for the fact that you have given us life and breath. Lord, even as we look to deliberate matters tonight here as elected officials and citizens here, Lord, we pray that, or we give thanks that you've given us skills and gifts, not just life, but abilities. And Lord, we pray that you would help us to use those in a way that would honor you. Lord, we do pray that in our community, that we would do justice for the oppressed. Lord, that we would care well for our fellow men and women. Lord, we pray that you would help us to be a place that loves mercy, that while we pursue justice, we would do it in a way that would be kind and gentle as is appropriate. And Lord, we pray that you would help us in all these things to look to you for guidance. Lord, we confess before you as a populace tonight that we do not have the wisdom or ability to live, much less to govern in a way that would please you without your help. And so, Father, I ask that you would give us that wisdom tonight. Help us to be humble before you as we lead and govern this community that you've so graciously given us. And so, Father, we pray that you direct the proceedings tonight, that we would do it in a way that's honorable and caring for one another. We ask in Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. So now we will officially call this regular meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Present in person, Mayor Miller.
Here.
Alderperson Borneman is absent. Ross.
Here.
Parker is absent. Busker.
Here.
Shadle.
Here.
Mysick.
Here.
And Berberet.
Here.
And then I will need a motion by someone with a second for allowing Alderman Monroe to be able to participate electronically, if there's such a motion.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Mysick.
Aye.
Berberet.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
And Shadle.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, so do you need to call for
Oh,
attendance on
so I will just note that Alderman Monroe is present electronically.
Thank you. And then if you could please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Alderman Mysick. Okay, item number 1 is the approval of the agenda. However, we will be removing on the closed session items 1, 2, and 11 and adding 8 and 14. So if there's a motion to approve that agenda.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Ross, seconded by Alderman Shadle. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Mysick.
Aye.
Berberet.
Aye.
Monroe. Ross.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Shadle.
Aye.
And we gave Monroe a moment there. Your vote, Alderperson Monroe?
Aye.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, motion passes 6-0.
Item number 2 is the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting on September 7th, 2021. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Mysick. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Mysick.
Aye.
Berberet.
Aye.
Monroe.
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
and Shadle.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Item number 3 is for public comments on agenda items. There are none signed up concerning agenda, so we'll move on to item number 4, which is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is considered to be routine in nature and acted as one motion unless there's a member of the council that would like to have something removed for further discussion. Is there anything, council? Item number 4 consists of approving and placing on file the board and commission minutes from the Foreign Fire Insurance for June 10th, 2021, the Zoning Board of Appeals, August 5th, 2021, Planning Commission, August 10th, 2021, the Liquor Commission from August 12th, 2021, and the Freeport Housing Authority monthly report. B is the approval of the finance bills totaling $970,292.17. Approval of payroll for pay period ending September 17th, 2021, in the total of $533,600.31. The finance report from August 2021, cash and investment reports, August 2021, approval of the 2022 calendar for holidays, council meetings, committee of the whole meetings, and a proclamation for the National Rail Safety Week, September 20th through the 26th, 2021. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Misick. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll? And could you also note that Alderman Borneman just showed. Thank you, Alderman Borneman.
Thank you. Misick,
Aye.
Berberet,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
and Shadle.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Item number 5 is the second reading of Ordinance 2021-35. Could you please read this?
Ordinance amending Section 480.12, restricted parking streets on Homer west of Walnut Avenue.
Thank you. Director Boyer?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is the second reading of the ordinance to approve a 2-hour parking zone on Homer adjacent to the Freeport Financial Services. Staff requests that council approve the parking restriction and changes to Ordinance 480.12.
Further discussion, council? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll on the passage?
Misick,
Aye.
Berberet,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
and Shadle.
Aye.
The ordinance passes 7-0.
Thank you. Item number 6 is the second reading of Ordinance 2021-38. Could you please read this?
Ordinance waiving $10,000 issuance fee for lapse in liquor license by Royco, Inc.
Thank you. Manager Bucus.
Thank you, Your Honor. The city ordinances require liquor licenses to be renewed by the 30th of July of each year. Failure to renew by this deadline requires the issuance of a new license. Royco, Inc. failed to renew their Tier 1 liquor license in a timely manner. As such, they should be considered a new liquor license applicant. The Liquor Commission eventually approved the renewal and voted to recommend that City Council waive the $10,000 issuance fee. This is the second reading on this ordinance, and staff has no further comments on it.
Any discussion on this agenda item? Alderman Shadle?
Are we aware, have they been late in the past for the same instance, or?
We have a number of applicants that are always late with their license, getting them into us on time.
However, this is the only one that actually went past the deadline. So by our ordinance, it would normally need to be renewed at the $10,000, and the Liquor Commission doesn't have that authority. So if there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Misick,
Aye.
Berberet,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
and Shadle.
Aye.
The ordinance passes 7-0.
Thank you. Item number 7 is the second reading of Ordinance 2021-40. Could you please read this?
Ordinance approving addition of Chapter 1278, self-serve storage facilities to the codified ordinances.
Thank you. Director Hines.
Thank you. So after the first reading of the ordinance, staff had discussed the use of mobile storage units for casualty situations like fire events. Fire victims can use these storage units following an event and need them on the property for an extended period of time. So we are actually tonight proposing to add some language that would allow for the Community and Economic Development Director to allow for extended use of the mobile storage units for these types of emergency situations. So in order to amend this, council would have to amend the original ordinance that was voted on at the first reading. The language that we're proposing to add would be added to section 1278.05 movable units. The original restriction was that any property not zoned for self-service storage would be limited to use of these mobile units for 14 days, but then we added in that upon request in connection with a bona fide emergency, disaster declaration, or restoration due to casualty loss, the Community Development Director at his or her sole discretion may grant a written extension of the time period expressed or otherwise provided for herein, subject to any terms and conditions as may be deemed appropriate by the Community Development Director. But other than this, adding this in to create a less restrictive addition to this code for emergency type situations, we would recommend that council approve this ordinance with the amended language.
So then I guess we would need to start with just that amendment. Any questions on that amendment that she just read?
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Busker.
motion to approve the amendment.
Okay, we have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross, to approve the amendment portion of this only according to 1278.05 movable units. Is there any further discussion on that portion? Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Misick,
Aye.
Berberay,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross, Busker,
Aye.
and Shadle.
Aye.
The amendment passes 7-0.
So now before you, council, then would be the amended version of this ordinance. Any discussion concerning the amended version? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Misick,
Aye.
Berberay,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
and Shadle.
Aye.
The ordinance passes 7-0.
Thank you. Item number 8 is the second reading of ordinance 2021-42. Could you please read this?
Ordinance amending the zoning code and the building and housing code pertaining to the regulation of drive-through and curbside delivery services.
Thank you. Director Hines?
Thank you. As a reminder, this is just adding in some standards and regulations for drive-through and curbside services. It wouldn't create any burden on existing businesses, but it would be standards for any incoming businesses that have drive-throughs or curbside services. So we would recommend approval of this, the addition of this chapter.
Discussion, council? Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on this passage?
Mayor, I think Mr.
Sorry,
Shadle
go
might
ahead.
have had something.
Yes, I'm sorry, Alderman Shadle.
I'm just, our new codes would reflect basically the building codes that are in effect, so any new construction, the prints would be drawn that they would be to this specs anyway.
That's
I would
correct.
imagine, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Misick,
Aye.
Berberay,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
and Shadle.
Aye.
And that ordinance passes 7-0.
Thank you. Item number 9 is the second reading of ordinance 2021-43. Could you please read this?
Ordinance adopting 2017 National Electric Code, Section 1424.01 of the Codified Ordinances.
Thank you. Director Hines.
Thank you. So just as a reminder for this one, again, this is, we would be changing from the 2011 National Electric Code to 2017. The most recent national electric code that came out was 2021, but we're proposing to adopt the 2017 tonight, and this was recommended by our building commission as well.
Anything, council? Alderman Berberet?
Director Hines, what event or what would cause us to adopt the 2021, and when might that be? And is it necessary?
No, I don't think it's necessary. I think Alderman Shadle had explained it well at the last meeting that these codes are updated every 3 years, but typically most communities are a few years behind the most updated code, and it just gives a chance for businesses to get up to those standards, even though they typically are following those anyways. Our electrician on the building commission had said that him and the other electricians that he knows in the area are already using these, at least the 2017 standards.
All right, thank you.
If there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Misick,
Aye.
Berberet,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
Shadle.
Aye.
The ordinance is passed 7-0.
Thank you. Item number 10 is the first reading of Ordinance 2021-39. Could you please read this?
Ordinance amending Section 226.03, compensation, medical, and life insurance for the mayor.
Thank you. Manager Bucus?
Thank you, Your Honor. As we've discussed numerous times in the past few meetings, with the change of government in 2017, the full-time mayor was awarded medical and life insurance benefits, but the part-time mayor was no longer eligible for these same benefits. For some reason, that was never made. That change was never made in the city code. But I want to point out that no benefits have been paid to or for our part-time mayor at this time, and the proposed amendment would formally remove this benefit for the part-time mayor. And it's staff's recommendation that the council approve the amendment to section 226.03, removing medical and life insurance as a benefit to the mayor, and that council will have second reading on tonight as well.
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Misick?
Thank you, Manager Bucus, and thank you also to Attorney Zito for providing some information regarding this. And in taking some time to review both the changes that were made in 2016 and also in 2020, this council, or several members of this current council, had approved in 2020 a version that still had this language that was left from the 2016 version. And going all the way back to that 2016 version, I had noted here that it did describe that period of time in May of 2017, May 1st of 2017 to May 15th of 2017, and it did not strike the shall continue to receive the same medical insurance and life insurance. And looking at this 2016 copy, the line previous to that reads, the mayor shall also receive the same medical insurance and life insurance received by other full-time city employees who are not members of any certified collective bargaining unit. And when looking at this, clearly the intent of the council in 2016 was to remove this statement about full-time city employees and then to put in this statement just covering that 2-week period of time. Originally, I was looking at this as really this is an opportunity. I believe personally that the mayor in this form of manager form of government should be considered also eligible for full benefits through the city. And I still would like to make a recommendation to the council to look at this at an appropriate time, to add this benefit to the city. And Manager Bucus provided some additional numbers that we may review that. Unfortunately, with this finding in 2016, this is not to be applied to our current administration. We would look at this likely at the point in time we would know whether or not we are maintaining home rule, and then review this once again. I would certainly like to take some time to review that at greater length at a later time. It looks like we're in the, I don't have, yeah, actually, I think maybe perhaps I do have this up. Randy, the numbers once again for single, I think single plus one and family, if you had those.
For life insurance, or excuse me, for health insurance?
Yeah, for the health insurance.
If I may. The city share of health insurance for a single policy is $9,749.76 per year. For a single plus one, it's $22,195.44. And for a family plan, it's $23,922.36. And I believe life insurance was $150 per year.
Thank you, Manager Bukis. And so with this review and so forth, I'm recognizing that the current ordinance before us is an amendment that cleans up that language, and I think that was the intent, is simply to clean up that language. And I'll just on a personal note, when I saw this change to the ordinance and the fact that we're not paying to our mayor, I'd like for us to really give this a strong consideration as to what we want the mayor to look like in the future. And we're very fortunate to currently have a mayor who puts in a very good amount of time to work very much in conjunction with our city manager. Really want to honor that, and at the same time continue to support the position of mayor into the future. So I just wanted to give some clarification on why we've had a couple of readings and review on this, and appreciate the ability to review this information from the past as well. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Alderman Borneman?
I guess my position is that when we draft an ordinance such as this, we should be careful to tailor it to the position and not necessarily the person. And I would be one of the first to acknowledge that this current mayor deserves benefits for the amount of work that she puts in and the work that she does for the city that goes beyond, I think, what the letter of the kind of job descriptions probably state. But that, again, is this particular mayor, who's to say the next mayor may not put in those same efforts, and then to pass an ordinance such as this, they would be entitled to benefits of essentially a full-time person. And it comes down to, like we discussed at the last meeting, yes, the mayor deserves, for the amount of work she probably does deserve to receive benefits, but at the same time, does the fire department deserve to have a full staff? Does the police department deserve more officers? Certainly. We only have so much funding, and so my position is to move forward and focus on the ordinance tailored towards the position and not necessarily the person, which makes this a little more difficult, because I totally see where Mr. Mizek's coming from.
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Monroe?
Yes, ma'am. I echo the sentiments of both the previous alderpersons that just spoke. I agree that all of our departments need to be staffed fully, that we need to do the things that we're put in office to do, fixing the roads and the infrastructure and everything else. But I mean, this is barely 5% of the overtime of the fire department that's fully staffed. So, I'm a little bit taken aback by some of the other alder people who are looking at this like it's a major deal. But I'm willing to kind of take a look at it at a later date. But we need to start holding other departments accountable if this is what we're going to go forward with the mayor. So, I appreciate everybody's position and everybody's thoughts, but we've got to apply this across the rest of the departments and make sure every dollar is being spent the right way, that we're not wasting funds, that we're doing the right thing everywhere we're going. And we need to have some real serious conversations. But I agree that this is a conversation for a later date.
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Busker?
Yeah, I just, we're kind of getting into the weeds a little bit. I want to make sure that, it's known that we're just clearing out language out of the ordinance that was previously there. There's nothing we can do until the next election cycle to change any of this. So this is just to amend the language now so that it's mirroring what we're doing in practice. So that's the goal of tonight's vote. So I just wanted to make that clear to everybody that we're not, not talking about spending any more money. It's just cleaning up language.
Any further discussion, council? Do we have a motion to move this forward?
So moved. Second?
We have a motion made by Alderman Ross, seconded by Alderman Berberet to move ordinance 2021-39 on to the next regularly scheduled meeting.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Busker?
motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross to suspend the rules. Suspension of the rules is non-debatable and must pass by a 2/3 majority. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll on suspension of the rules only?
Meissick,
No.
Berberet,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
and Shadle.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1.
Thank you. Now before you, council, is the final passage of ordinance 2021-39. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Meissick,
No.
Berberet,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
and Shadle.
Aye.
And the ordinance passes 6-1.
Thank you. Item number 11 is the first reading of ordinance 2021-44. Madam Clerk, would you please read this?
Ordinance amending Section 806.07 pertaining to the licensing of alcoholic liquor establishments, additional filing fee for late applications.
Thank you. Manager Bucus?
Thank you, Your Honor. As we just previously discussed regarding liquor licenses, we have a problem with a number of our liquor license holders being late with their renewal applications, and this has caused a backup in the city clerk's office, and it requires numerous special meetings of the Liquor Commission to move things forward. The Liquor Commission did discuss this problem at their September 9th regular meeting, and they're recommending to council that we amend Section 806.07 of the municipal code to require a $20 per day penalty for any liquor license that's not completed by the deadline date. The amount of the fee may seem small, but these applications are weeks late at times and require rescheduling of Liquor Commission members. Late filers are not only putting city staff behind, but they're also disrupting the lives of 5 community members who volunteer their time to serve on the Liquor Commission. And it's staff's recommendation that the council approve the amendment.
Questions? Alderman Berberet?
Director Bucus, you mentioned that $20 is almost like a minimum fee, but what is the $20 based on? In comparison to other municipalities, or where does that come from?
It came from the Liquor Commission, that's all I can tell you.
Okay. Does that seem reasonable?
May I?
Yes.
I reached out to other city clerks, and Carpentersville responded, and they charge a $20 per day late fee.
Follow up?
Sure.
Just to be a technocrat, it says per day, is that business day or day of the week?
Per day.
Per day, period, okay.
Alderman Busker?
Yes, is there a limit on the days before it goes to requiring it to be a full renewal? Is there a 60 or 90 day, once you reach a certain threshold, you go to that, you have to pay for a reissuance?
Once they reach the expiration date of their license, which would be July 30th, they would have to then apply for a new license. That would be the $10,000 fee we talked about earlier.
Okay. Motion to move it forward.
Mayor, I guess I'll wait for that.
Go ahead.
I guess just if the city manager could kind of walk us through how this particular ordinance would have applied in a situation that we dealt with earlier in the meeting.
When were applications due?
Per ordinance, applications are due June 1st. When I mail them out, completely filled out for them, and they just need to review them. I asked for them to be returned by May 18th. Let's see, Mayor, we went into that first meeting with 6. The June Liquor Commission meeting, we had 6 applicants who had, 3 of them had not turned in anything. 3 of them were too late to make the deadline for the posting of the agenda. And Mayor, would you say, since we've been here for the last 4 years, we've had a special liquor commission to make up for the ones that aren't turned in annually, I believe?
1, 2, maybe 3 sometimes,
Yeah,
all because of people not getting their stuff done. And it's, those expiration dates don't change. They know every single year that at this date it's due. And then we have ones that even go as far out as, the end of July where they didn't get their stuff done. So
Okay.
instead of saying, we're gonna remove that license and you have to pay a $10,000 start over fee, this is a $20 per day, what other communities have done, and hopefully it will put a little more urgency to people just responding on a timely manner.
Okay, and then just one last clarification.
Sure.
Currently, there's no late fee. Okay. I would second, I believe Mr. Busker had a motion to, well, this is the second, that's the first reading.
First reading.
I'll second his motion.
So we have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Borneman to move this ordinance on to the next meeting. Alderman Berberet?
Thank you, Your Honor. Manager Bucas, just what happens if they're late on their Freeport license? And how does that affect the state of Illinois license? Because they do have a liquor license through the state of Illinois, correct?
Yes.
Are the two same deadlines and things like that?
may I, Mayor? The state license expires on their anniversary of whenever they applied. Freeport is different, and they all expire on June 30th.
Thank you.
It does. There were maybe 3 or 4 that were a little anxious this year about getting their city license because their state was expiring June 30th. And so, they had to wait for the Liquor Commission meeting and to get it issued. So it pinches a couple of them.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Alderman Shadle?
I'd just like to say that it seems to me that it's pretty irresponsible of a business owner to have their livelihood hanging on the fact that they're too slow to get a paper turned in, that Dovey's kind enough to fill out for them, they just have to sign their name.
Yeah, the clerk does an extreme amount of work when it comes to those. So if there's no further discussion, we'll move this ordinance on to the next regularly scheduled meeting. Item number 12 is the first reading of ordinance 2021-45. Could you please read this?
Ordinance amending Chapter 612 Animals, Section 612.17, no trapping to allow for feral cat trap, neuter release, TNR program.
Thank you. Manager Bucas.
Thank you, Your Honor. Some of the areas in the city have an issue with feral cats, and many of these cats are wild, and sympathetic residents do feed them. Scientific studies show that trap, neuter, return, also known as TNR, is a humane and effective approach for managing feral cats. Trap, neuter, return improves the lives of feral cats and improves their relationships with people who live near them and decreases the size of colonies over time. These studies have been conducted in multiple countries and have been published in a variety of peer-reviewed scientific journals. Our municipal code, section 612.17, prohibits trapping of cats except for the animal control officer or his or her designated representative. The proposed ordinance would amend section 612.17 to allow the Networking Illinois Preventers of Cat Overpopulation, also known as NIPCO Limited, to set traps for community and feral cats. Allowing NIPCO to trap, neuter, and release feral cats will be a cost savings to the city. It will free up time and other resources to deal with other animal issues. Staff recommends the city council approve the ordinance to allow NIPCO Limited to trap feral and feral cats in the city. And in order to allow the process to begin as soon as possible, staff recommends the city council suspend the rules and have second reading tonight as well.
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Busker?
Yes, I think this is a very good program to get started up. The only thing I would ask is, and I asked it in the committee of the whole, is to make sure that any traps set out are labeled with the owner's name and phone number, so we know who's out there doing it. But with that said, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross, to move ordinance 2021-45 onto the next regularly scheduled meeting. Alderman Busker?
Motion to suspend.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross for suspension of the rules. Suspension of the rules is non-debatable and must pass by 2/3 majority. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Misick,
Aye.
Berberay,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
and Shadle.
Aye.
The suspension passes 7-0.
So now before you, council, is the final reading of ordinance 2021-45. Is there any further discussion? Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Misick,
Aye.
Berberay,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
and Shadle.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted 7-0, but Mayor, I missed the second on the original motion.
Ross.
Ross.
Thank you.
And I'd just like to say thank you for those that are involved with NIPCO for seeing a problem and finding a solution. So thank you. We'll move on to item number 13, which is the first reading of ordinance 2021-45. Could you please read this?
I've got 46 up here, Mayor. Did I skip one?
I should have had my glasses on. You're right,
Okay.
it says 46.
Okay. Ordinance approving and authorizing the city to enter into a first renewal to lease agreement with Peter Albert regarding 103 to 111 South Liberty Avenue.
Thank you. Manager Bucus.
Thank you, Your Honor. Peter Albert is leasing the first floor of the metal clad Raleigh building the city owns on Liberty Street. He owns and operates a business next door to this building. Mr. Albert desires to lease the first floor for another year. He's been leasing it for a year now from us. And the city has an option to sell this property to Green Healthcare Solutions. They are aware of this lease and they have no issues with us leasing this portion of the building to Mr. Albert. And staff recommend that council approve the lease agreement.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross, to move ordinance 2021-46 onto the next regularly scheduled meeting. Attorney Zito?
Manager Bucus, just one quick question. The memo says that the annual rent is going to be $2,000. Is that correct?
That was my understanding, but I think the lease agreement has 1,000, so we have to look into that.
Okay.
So if there's any changes, we'll know on the second reading. Any further discussion, council? Then we'll move this forward to the next meeting. Item number 14 is the first reading of ordinance 2021-47. Could you please read this?
Ordinance authorizing the disposal of certain personal property owned by the city, which is the police department guns, to be disassembled and disposed of.
Thank you. Chief Summers?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. During the course of law enforcement activities, the police department frequently takes in firearms that are not wanted by the individuals or recovered as pieces of evidence in order destroyed by the court. We currently have a significant number of firearms that are in need of destruction. Many of these firearms were taken in during the gun buyback program that was held earlier in the spring. The staff is asking permission to destroy the evidence. I supplied the list of the guns that were on there. Some of these guns will be destroyed as from the gun buyback program. Some of the firearms that were turned over will be sold by the Ratworks Incorporated. It's a local agencies that we've partnered with to help take care of these things. They will destroy the guns that are ordered destroyed in terms of how the ATF requires them, and they will sell on auction the other guns that may have been turned in because a family member didn't want them, and that money will come back to the city that we can use for other law enforcement projects.
Discussion?
Motion to move it forward.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross to move ordinance 2021-47 on to the next regularly scheduled meeting. Anything further, council? We'll move on to item number 15, which is the first reading of ordinance 2021-48. Could you please read this?
Ordinance approving variance for accessory building at 709 North Warren Avenue.
Thank you. Director Hines.
Thank you. On August 16th, we received a variance request to place an accessory structure 9 feet from the primary building at 709 North Warren Avenue. Our code in section 1268.07 states that in residential districts, no detached accessory building shall be closer than 10 feet to the principal building. The variance came after the structure was put up. It's partially done right now. The building permit was issued on June 11th for the new garage, but the foundation was poured and the structure was put up prior to the building inspector coming by, so the contractor had failed to get the inspections done at the right time. So we stopped the work and advised that they need to submit the variance request for this, so they're waiting on this currently. The zoning board held a public hearing on September 2nd and voted 4-0 to recommend approval. No one was present to object the garage, and then at the planning commission they reviewed this on September 9th and they voted 7-0 to recommend approval. It's staff's recommendation to approve this as well, and I would also request suspension of the rules so that they can move forward with finishing up the garage.
Alderman Shadle.
Director, is the building inspector comfortable with the footings and the foundations, seeing as how those wouldn't have been inspected either?
Yeah, it does look really nice, how it's set up now. He's comfortable with it, with what they've done so far. It's just that distance from the house.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mayor,
Alderman Borneman.
I'll make a motion to move this forward.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Borneman, seconded by Alderman Misick to move ordinance 2021-48 on to the next regularly scheduled meeting.
Mayor,
Alderman Borneman.
I was going to make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Alderman Borneman, seconded by Alderman Busker to suspend the rules. And again, suspension of the rules is non-debatable and must pass by 2/3 majority. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Misick,
Aye.
Berberet,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
and Shadle.
Aye.
The suspension passes 7-0.
So now before you, council, is the final passage, final reading for ordinance 2021-48. If there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Misick,
Aye.
Berberet,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
and Shadle.
Aye.
And the ordinance passes 7-0.
And item number 16 is the adoption of resolution 2021-52. Could you please read this?
Resolution authorizing and approving a redevelopment agreement for 206 West Stevenson Street.
Thank you, Director Hines.
Thank you. We're proposing a redevelopment agreement with Savaria Spearman to incrementally remove a $31,500 lien that's recorded against the property at 206 West Stevenson Street while he works on fixing the building. So Mr. Spearman had the winning bid on 206 West Stevenson Street through the county trustee auction. He approached us in August regarding the removal of the lien, asking if we would be willing to remove that as he improves the building. And so we proposed this redevelopment agreement to remove it as he completes the improvements. So Mr. Spearman's proposing to improve the second and third floor apartments spaces to rent out as living space. and he's going to improve the main floor for commercial use. The developer must have title, this is by the agreement, they must have title by December 31st of 2021, begin work by January 31st of 2022, and then the project can be completed in 3 phases, and each phase would be completed by the date that I'm going to say, and we would release a third of the lien if they meet each of these deadlines. So for phase 1, if they completed restoration and got a certificate of occupancy for one of the floors by December 31st of 2022, we would release a third of the lien. If they completed and obtained a certificate of occupancy for a second floor by the 31st of 2023, or December 31st of 2023, then we would release the second third of the lien, and then if they complete the third floor by June 30th of 2024, then we would release the third. The idea of splitting it up like this and kind of pushing it out is the cost of construction is increased, and he's a local small business owner that is kind of just starting out his property entrepreneurship, and so this will help him have that time to fix up these floors, and we can still have that lien on the property to make sure that that's getting done. And then, so the phases are spread out to accommodate those increased costs. So we would recommend approval of the redevelopment agreement to encourage the redevelopment and improvements of 206 West Stevenson Street. I can take any questions.
Thank you, Director. Alderman Shadle?
I don't really have a question. My comment would be that I think this is a very fair way to do it, and I would be in favor of it.
I'll make a motion.
Yeah, no further comments. I'd say I'd make a motion to adopt the
Second.
resolution 2021-52.
Was there a second?
Yep.
Burberry? Okay. We have a motion made by Alderman Shadle, seconded by Alderman Burberry. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Misick,
Aye.
Berberay,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
and Shadle.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted 7-0.
Item number 17 is the adoption of Resolution 2021-53. Could you please read this?
Resolution authorizing execution and amendment of Federal 5311 grant agreement for fiscal year 2022.
Thank you. Director Hines?
Thank you. The approval of this resolution authorizing execution and amendment of the Federal 5311 grant fiscal year 2022 is required by City Council in order to accept this transportation grant. The funding for this grant is not to exceed $171,443. Local match comes from the Downstate Operating Assistance Grant Program and from service contracts with local organizations. As part of our annual transportation grant applications, Council is required to approve a few different ordinances and resolutions, 2 of which we did earlier, and now this resolution to accept the grant agreement. So we would recommend approval of this to move forward with this. It's just an annual requirement for the grant.
Alderman Shadle?
And making a motion to adopt the resolution 2021-53.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Alderman Shadle, seconded by Alderman Busker. Any further discussion, Council? Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Misick,
Aye.
Berberay,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
and Shadle.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted 7-0.
And item number 18 is the adoption of Resolution 2021-54. Could you please read this?
Resolution authorizing and approving a 4-year fixed base operator or FBO quote for Albertus Airport.
Thank you. Manager Bucus?
Thank you, Your Honor. Every 3 years, the city requests proposals to manage and operate Albertus Airport. And the fixed base operator, also known as an FBO, also acts as our airport manager. Proposals for the fixed base operator services were advertised and mailed to prospective bidders. Only one proposal was received. There were a few variances in our request for proposals and the proposal that was submitted. Among those differences were that, one, that the city requested a 3-year contract, and the proposal was for 5 years. Second, the city required Saturday hours, and the proposal has Saturday hours by appointment. The third area was the request for proposals, had the FBO purchase the fuel and carry the insurance on it. The proposal had the city continuing to purchase and insure fuel operations. And fourth, the request for proposals required flight instruction, aircraft mechanical work, and airplane leasing. The proposal has the an airplane club provide the flight instruction, and a current-based mechanic doing the aircraft repairs, maintenance on aircraft. And aircraft rental will probably be through the airplane club. With the proposed services, the city will have to lease or purchase a Jet A fuel truck. The city has done so in the past, and there is a Jet A fuel truck that we know that may be available for purchase at this time. Staff reviewed the proposals and feels the discrepancies should be waived by the city council, and staff further recommends that the contract term be for 4 years, and council approve the contract as is attached to the resolution.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Meiseck.
I'm not certain in the airport current hours. Is there any concern with not having regular hours on Saturday?
We have a self-fueling system there, so for the most part, if somebody came in and needed fuel, they weren't low lead, they could fuel themselves. We do have an emergency number posted at the airport that if somebody needed assistance, they could call that number and somebody would come then.
Follow up. So does that increase any risk? I mean, to have people in the airport without the staffing or not during the regular hours? I don't know if have we had any type of incidents where we've had people using the airport services without outside of the normal operation?
We have that all the time because right now hours are from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, and so anything after 5 o'clock. We do have activity, especially during the summertime when when the sun's still out and people like to fly during daylight hours. An example would also be when Hy-Vee came in, they flew their jet in that day and then they flew out that night. I mean, but the airport was technically closed when they left. So we do have airport operations ongoing all the time.
Sure. Last follow-up. Just my reason for concern here is that obviously there's going to be a certain crowd that's just using the airport on the weekend, right? And it just if that was creating any concern for us, it doesn't appear that that's any major issue. As long as we can be assured that the services they need are there, for them at that time.
For the most part, they'll be there. As we look at the airport and try to develop it, people want us to try to look at getting a restaurant out there. You need more traffic in order to generate that type of activity. When the activity starts picking up, I think you'll see that then it's worth our time and effort to staff it on Saturdays.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Alderman Borneman.
so I hate to delay the meeting with hypotheticals or just questions for my own edification, but when the airport is closed, how would an individual get in and out? Do owners have specific keys? Is it not locked? I guess I just don't know, and I'm curious about that.
Well, if they're based there, they have their own hangar keys and stuff, and we have a parking lot that they could go through. We also have a gate that is automatic, that if they put the code in, they could get in and onto the airport.
So you'd have to know the code. It's not just like you just drive in. There's some
No.
security in place.
No, you cannot drive on the airport. There's two parking lots that people are supposed to utilize.
Oh, okay. Just thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Busker.
Motion to adopt resolution R 2021-54.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Shadle. Is there any further discussion, council? Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Meissick,
Aye.
Berbere,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
and Shadle.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted 7-0.
Item number 19 is approval of bids. Madam Clerk, could you please read this?
Bid opening on September 14th, 2021 for the demolition of 52 South Hooker Avenue, 711 East Oren Street, and 636 to 638 East Crocker Street.
Thank you. Director Hines.
Thank you. We opened 3 bids for the demolition and asbestos abatement services for these 3 properties on September 14th. The lowest bidder was JMP Trucking for a total of $33,100. And the cost for this demolition and asbestos abatement services, so the entire project will be 100% covered by the flood mitigation grant that's funded through DCEO, the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. And so we would recommend approval of the demolition bid to JMP Trucking.
Madam Mayor?
Alderman Ross.
Yeah, I reviewed those biddings, and I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve it.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Ross, seconded by Alderman Busker to approve the bids as stated. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Meissick,
Aye.
Berbere,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
and Shadle.
Aye.
The motion passes 7-0.
And item number 20 is another approval of bid. Could you please read this?
Bid opening on September 14th, 2021 for demolition of 702 South Carroll.
And Director Hines.
Thank you. So we got in 2 bids for this property at 702 South Carroll. This one's a little bit different. So pursuant to administrative adjudication findings, decision and order for citation number 2101012, dated July 15th, 2021, the City of Freeport requested bids from qualified companies to provide labor, materials, equipment, and supplies necessary for asbestos inspection and abatement, demolition and removal of an unenclosed front porch of this property, and then removal of waste and garbage and refuse. Community development staff pursued the chronic nuisance ordinance to remove the front porch of this property due to the danger it poses to neighboring properties and residents. And for this one, you can even look at Google Maps and see back in 2012, the front porch of the house looked almost the same. It's just in a lot worse condition right now. But the bid requested price points for the removal of the front porch if there were asbestos abatement and if there were no asbestos abatement required. We received 2 bids. JMP Trucking bid $3,970 for the removal of the unenclosed porch with no asbestos abatement. They didn't provide any numbers if there were asbestos abatement required. Fisher Excavating bid $4,695 with no asbestos abatement and $5,320 if there is asbestos abatement required. Because Fisher provided these 2 different numbers, we would recommend going with them in case they do have to remove asbestos on the property. And so I can take any questions if you have any.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Ross.
in reference to 702 South Carroll, after it is tore down or demolished, would that probably, if someone was interested in it, could they purchase that property or not?
Director Hines.
So we're just requesting the removal of the front porch. Right now, there's a potential that it could fall down and fall onto neighboring properties or endanger people walking by. And so it's posing a threat to the surrounding properties. So we won't own this, we don't own it, and so it'll be, the structure will technically still be standing. We did put in the bid that if they cannot safely remove just the front porch, that they would have to come back and let us know, rebid for the removal of the structure. We would likely have to go back to administrative adjudication for that too, but depending on the severity of the situation.
Follow, Mayor. So at this time, they're only removing the front porch and what's most dangerous to the public?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to demolition 702 South Carroll.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Alderman Ross, seconded by Alderman Busker. Is there any further discussion on this particular bid? Alderman Shadle.
I'm just curious, whose hands is this in? Is it in receivership, or is it something that we're looking at taking title on eventually, or?
Yeah, I think we would like to be able to remove the entire structure. The property, it's owned by someone who's based in California. I'm not sure if they were ever in the area, and we see that a lot with properties that are sold on the tax trustee sale, is that people out of state will buy them, and just leave them vacant, let them sit. They won't do anything with it. But this is one that we're watching and keeping an eye on to see if it does go on that tax sale, so we can take it off.
Thank you.
Alderman Burberry.
Director Hines, the funds to do this will come from where?
So it would come from the city, and we would ultimately put a lien on the property.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Then the motion made by Ross, seconded by Busker. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Meissick,
Aye.
Berberay,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
and Shadle.
Aye.
The motion passes 7-0.
Item number 21 is the approval of granting quitclaim deeds for a strip of property along Pocket Park on West Stevenson Street. Manager Bucus?
Thank you, Your Honor. In order to tear down the Hairway building at 11 East Stevenson Street, the city needed, West Stevenson Street, the city needed to brace the west wall of the Jet Beauty building. In order to do so, we needed to get an easement from Oliver Hammond Sr. To shore up that wall and have access to his roof. Mr. Hammond has given us that easement, and we will now need, in order for him now to maintain the wall that we repaired, he will need some kind of easement from us or some kind of land dedicated. And after discussing this with staff, we're proposing that the city grant a 5-foot strip of land that's adjacent to the Jet Beauty building for Mr. Hammond's use. Mr. Hammond is agreeable to this. He did not require any payment for the lease that he gave us, and we're not requiring any payment for this strip of land that we're giving him. And it's staff's recommendation that the council adopt a motion to quitclaim the 5-foot strip to Mr. Hammond.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Meissick?
I appreciate this offering of that strip of land. So that means the work that was done, all of that that now extends beyond what normally would be the structure would now be ownership of the. It basically it extends the property line in essence, right? It's an extension of that property to the current owner of the building, correct?
Correct. The Jet Beauty building would now have 5 foot of the green space that's there right now that we're proposing to put our pocket park in place, so that he would have access to that property to maintain his wall. If we were able to sell the pocket park property for a building, there would then be a 5-foot gap between the two buildings, so that both property owners could have access to their walls.
Okay. Thank you. One follow-up. So my understanding, just as the city was working on tearing down the property, we had excellent cooperation by the owner here, and I think this is a great way to reward for that effort as well.
It was a public-private partnership, and part of our strategic plan to work with local businesses, and local businesses were working with us.
Sure. Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Meissick. Any further discussion, council? Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Meissick,
Aye.
Berberay,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
Shadle.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0.
Move on to item number 22, which is reports of department heads. Finance?
Nothing this evening, Your Honor.
Thank you. Community Development?
Yeah, I'd just like to report on the predecessor mitigation grant. We're still currently waiting on the state to send us the grant agreement. I think I said the other week that we did accept we accepted a notice of state award in GATA, our grant accounting system. But right now the IEMA legal team is processing the grant agreement, so we're just waiting on them to send it to us. We're still expecting it, but they've been telling us on a weekly basis that we'll get it by the end of the week. So we're waiting on it, but we're following up with them continuously.
Thank you. Public Works?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd just like to report that winter construction has started working on the Burchard site, and this week we believe we'll be doing some foundation work. The city streets crew have been taking care of utility cuts, hot mixing various patches in the roadway, and we are prepared for leaf season this year, so that'll start October 10th. So that's all I've got.
Okay, thank you. Fire Department?
Good evening, Your Honor. Couple brief items from the fire department. It was a very busy weekend for us over at Freeport Fire. This included coverage for the air show, which was an excellent event, and hopefully that's something that our community can build on in the future, along with our many other duties. I'd also like to take a moment to give a shout out to my crews for their work this weekend. There were 53 calls for service over Saturday and Sunday, so over 2 days. That's normally about somewhere around 5 days worth of calls for us. With multiple calls for more serious nature than usual, this included our involvement in medical support for the unfortunate events that Chief Summer and his officers were called upon to deal with this past weekend. For informational purposes, our department continues to prep for Fire Prevention Month that is coming up in October. Our main mission being that of educating our youth on the dangers associated with fire out at our public grade schools. One important note for this year, at this time, we are still working out the details of what that level of involvement will be with the students due to COVID. So we're working on that with the school district. Also, just a reminder to the public, along with fire prevention, of our ongoing smoke detector program. This is a free program that can bring new smoke detectors to those residents who have none or whose current smoke detectors are not functioning. These smoke detectors come with a 10-year battery and will be installed by our crews. Please call 815-235-8217 to request them, or stop by Central Fire Station, which is located at 1650 South Walnut, to sign up. Finally, a reminder that our department is holding an open house on Thursday evening, September 30th, from 6 to 8 p.m. There will be plenty of demonstrations, our fire safety house, a junior firefighter challenge course for kids 12 and under. I'm sure we could squeeze any of you guys in that wanted to give it a whirl. And a lot more. The public is encouraged to check it out, and masks are required. And that's all I have for this week, Your Honor.
Thank you. Police Department?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to recap for everyone here who doesn't know the events of the weekend. It was a very violent weekend here in town. Starting on Friday, we had about 10 o'clock in the morning, we received 3 calls in close proximity and time of shots being fired that were confirmed by evidence at each location. This continued through late Sunday, where we had 10 incidents of shots being fired all weekend long. During those, 4 people were struck by gunfire. On Saturday night, approximately 11:30 p.m., a female was struck in the 1100 block of South Chicago Avenue. Approximately 11:20 a.m. on Sunday, a male was struck in the chest after he engaged in a shootout with other individuals in the 800 block of South Galena. Approximately 2:27 p.m. in the 200 block of South Cherry, 2 females were struck by gunfire. One of those females, a 16-year-old Kiana Clark, lost her life due to gun violence. After that, we had 2 more shots being fired here in town. It's difficult from where I sit because my job is to protect the city and protect the citizens. And sometimes we feel like we fail on when we do, when we have weekends like this. I go back to May 31st of 2020, the night of the civil unrest. I was standing in front of the police department with my entire department, and I had an individual in my face screaming at me, "What programs are you doing for my kids? What are you doing for my kids?" And I wish that individual was here in the room today, because I'd ask, "What are you doing for our kids?" This is not a police issue alone. Many things need to occur for us to resolve this. This is a community issue that takes everyone to help with this. It's not the school's issue. It's not the hospital's issue. It's not the city's issue alone. We all need to work together to resolve this. Never before have I seen the level of violence. If you are associated with one of these two local hybrids, you are a target. We've seen over and over that females, gang members are surveilling females' residents and waiting for gang members to return to their house and open fire on them as they approach houses. If you're with these gang members, you're a target. And beyond that, business owners that allow these gang members to make videos on their scene, on their property, and TikTok videos, you're part of the problem. Landlords that allow gang members to gather on their property, you're part of the problem. And it's frustrating for me, the person who's supposed to protect the city, that we can't get people to come together and realize that and want to stand back and take blame or point fingers at what the issue is. I do want to point out also on May 31st, we had one officer that was singled out by the crowds that were upset with him because he's an aggressive officer and he is a great investigative officer. This same officer who was the subject of ridicule that night was on the porch rendering aid to Kiana Clark. That officer struggles with what happened on May 11th or May 31st, and will probably struggle with what happened. I'm proud of that officer for continuing on what he does every day.
Thank you, Chief. Library?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Thank you. IT? And Airport, since you're here this evening, would you like to say something?
Obviously, the big thing is the air show. It was a great success. We had, we don't know numbers yet. I don't know numbers anyway. The promoter has not given me those yet, but it was a success all the way around. FAA was there. We had 3 representatives there. They love our airport, which is a big thing. We already have been talking to improve the air show for next year. We also, all the air show people that were there, they loved being there. It was a great success. And they all commented that the city doesn't realize the asset they have at the airport. So that was awesome to hear that they were all happy to be there. So that's my big thing.
Thank you.
Thanks.
City Manager's report.
IT director?
I'm sorry, what?
Want to do the IT director?
Yeah, he said he didn't have any.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep, no, you're good.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to make known that the city currently has a number of positions that are open that we're advertising for or in the process of advertising for, and they have different dates as far as when applications will be due. You could check our website or where we have them posted, and they will be posted shortly. That includes administrative assistance position, the community and economic development director's position, a wastewater treatment operator, a evidence officer, which is part-time with the police department, a dispatcher, a regulatory and compliance, environmental compliance officer, and of course, we are in the process of putting together eligibility list for both the police and fire department. So we have a number of openings and at this time, and we encourage people to apply. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Just a couple of things this evening. I'd like to thank Mark Menino as well as the airport management team for their great event on Saturday for the Northwest Illinois Air Show. It was a great job, and I only think that it's going to be able to continue to go up and do better every year. I'd also like to extend my condolences to the families that are grieving. I'm truly sorry for your loss. I have complete confidence in our law enforcement team, and I stand in agreement with our chief and his department, and I urge those that have information to please step forward. Alderman Misick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In light of the violence we've seen in our city, this is something that really does strike very close to home, and I know even some of these shots fired locations are coming closer and closer to many of these residential neighborhoods, really, that this is a city issue. I thank the chief and every member of the Freeport Police for how they are serving through some really difficult times, and I think the extra hours of effort in following up on every lead, everything that is happening, my heart goes out to the entire force and to any of the families affected. This is a very big deal. We have tools available as well, Crime Stoppers, and it's there for a reason. We want to see Freeport to be safe. We want to see the residents able to safely travel. I have personally taken different streets this past weekend and having to travel through town as a result, and that's troubling, right? To have to do that in my own city. Yet I have confidence that our force is doing all that they can do, and I just pray that we find strategies to do this the right way and to bring safety back in our community. So thank you in advance for your courage to come forward and to do what needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Berberet.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll echo what Alderman Misick said, and we'll not go over it, just give our support to the chief and his team. I will tell you that when we were informed of the various acts of violence, my wife and I were together, and we took some time to say some special prayers for our law enforcement officers as well as for the victims and their families, hoping that everybody would find a way to come together to solve the problems. It is a community problem.
Alderman Borneman.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, you say that there were 10 separate incidents of shots fired this weekend?
That's correct. The first was at 10:09 on 9/17. The last was at 10:52 on 9/19.
Wow. So, obviously, along with everyone on the council, and our hearts and thoughts are with those that have been affected by this violence and the tragedies that have are in the wake of this violence. The violence is senseless. It's completely unjustified. The silence, this code of silence where people know who is doing these shootings and they're not coming forward, is senseless and it's unjustified. The anger that the chief showed, the frustration, the anger that I'm sure we're going to hear from people in the crowd is justified. This is not okay. We, as a community, we have to have a set of expectations. We have to have a higher standard. And you can be angry at the police department, you can be angry at the city, but at this point, it's beyond blame. What we need are solutions. We need to put a spotlight on this violence. We need to acknowledge that this violence is increasing in both frequency and, more unfortunately, in frequency and the significance of this violence. I mean, it is common for there to be shots fired on a weekend in the city of Freeport. Again, we need to put a spotlight on this as a city. We have a police department that's understaffed. I, encourage the department. As a former prosecutor, I understand the level of professionalism our department has, and they do great work, but they're understaffed, and they're dealing with individuals who are indiscriminately firing shots in neighborhoods. So I'd encourage the city to use all the resources available to speak or work with the state police. I understand the county's pretty much focused. All the resources they have are probably in the city of Freeport. But, federal authorities at a certain point, it's getting to the point, well, it is, past that point now. If you look back just from last summer to this summer, it's gotten to something that I never thought I would see in the city of Freeport. So again, my thought is this is something that, our thoughts and prayers are with those affected, and I don't mean this sacrilegiously, but we're not going to be able to pray this issue away. We need the community to come together. We need actions. We need to put a spotlight on this violence and those committing it. And we need, as a community, to hold those individuals accountable. And the police are trying to do that, but they can't do it on their own. So we're open to suggestions. The city, myself, let's come together and let's figure out some solutions to this issue. Because it's tragic, and it's just unfortunate and hard to really comprehend. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Monroe?
Thank you, Mayor. And, I'm going to echo a lot of the same things that our other city council members, the chief, have said. When I ran for this position, it was to help make this city a safer place to be. We've got several $100,000 in federal funding that's come our way that the chief and the department needs to use in technology to basically help us fight this. But that's only part of it. The police department, the sheriff's department, the state police are doing an amazing job. I actually sat and listened to the radio for part of the time over the last 72 hours, the efforts that they put in. I'm proud of what they've done. What I can tell you is my disappointment in other members of the government is boiled over. The state's attorney needs to start doing their job. They need to step up. They need to get going. Right now, we're slapping people on the hands. The hard work the chief and his men and women are doing every single day, and it's being turned away with a slap on the hand and a bag of M&Ms and say, hey, sorry, we bothered you. Back out on the street with we're taking felonies and downgrading them to crimes that are not even, it's unfathomable. And it needs to be brought up. People need to be held accountable, and that we need to get this stopped. We've got the money technology-wise to fix this. Momentarily, we can talk about some of that. I've seen some great technology in my travels with my current civilian job, as I'll call it. But we need to step up, and we need to put an end to this, and we need to get the perpetrators that are doing this and killing our children, shooting our friends, our neighbors, our families, and we need to put a stop to it now, because it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. I've lived in communities that have been ravaged by violence. It's not a great place to be, and we want to make Freeport a place to come back to. And I'll stand behind the chief and his men and women any day of the week to make sure this happens. And this is part of my frustration with what I consider misuse of funds in our city right now. And I want to see that get fixed. I think we've got the right people to get it done. My anger, my frustrations, are at a boiling point. I know several other people in the community feel the same way, and we need to get it done. It's on us to fix it. So, you know, I'm looking forward to what we can come up with. Manager Bucus and his directors to help us figure this out as well, and the mayor, and I look forward to working with all of you to make sure this happens. But, you know, my heartfelt prayers and thoughts go out to the families that have been ravaged by these crimes. But we will get to the bottom of it. We will hold those accountable. And I think we need to take a much harder line as a city. And I'm not sure how much more I can say about that, but thank you.
Alderman Ross?
Yes, I don't know where to start at, but I'm going to start here. First of all, Chief, I want to commend that officer because I know who you're talking about. He took a lot that night. But you know what? That didn't stop him from doing his job. He went on ahead and took care of business because that's the kind of person he is. He didn't let that go in one ear and out the other. No, he just went right in. When you only got two guys there on the scene, you don't know if they're going to come back or not, the shooters. But he still stayed there, did his job, not just because he was here to be a policeman. He's got to have it in here. And he did it. Now, with that being said, though, I think we need to go back to that old saying, it's 10 o'clock, where are your children at? Because evidently we don't know. And it's too bad. But we need to come together as one. One hand wash the other one. You know, just like tying your shoes, you need two hands, unless you're wearing Velcro. But the thing about it is, we need to come together, because that's the only way we're going to get anything done. I mean, honest to God truth. I mean, I know for sure somebody knows something. But this hide and seek, don't tell, it's not any good. Because Freeport is a great place. I've been here 61 years. And I've seen the ups and downs. But you know what, though? I've seen more ups than I have downs. And I've been out there. And like I said, though, I know we can do better. Because you guys are doing great. You, the fire department, I ain't lying. When high water come, fire department's there, police department's there. You know. But this right here, this constant shooting and shooting and shooting, man, yeah, it touches. It's got me kind of a little choked up, but it's good due to the fact I don't like seeing people hurt. That's one thing for sure. So I'm always there for a hand. No ifs, ands, or buts about it, and you know that. Thank you.
Alderman Busker?
Yeah, my condolences to the families who are grieving tonight. I just keep thinking that I'm happy my daughter is out of town in a safe place right now, or else she could have been out there on those streets. You know, goes back to what the police department was saying in their press release or press briefing this afternoon. If you see something, say something. There's other avenues than just getting yourself out there, write an anonymous note, leave it in the mailbox, send it to the police department, somebody will get it. Call Crime Stoppers. I mean, you know, just giving information, hey, check out this house, look at it for a while. The cops are smart, they know what they're doing, they'll get the evidence they need, they just need to have someone give them guidance of where something is. With that said, you know, it's just scary knowing that a lot of these places that the shots have been fired, you know, drive through those streets every day. You know, we gotta get together and solve this problem. Tell these gangbangers that this isn't tolerated. This isn't Freeport mentality. Take your stuff and go someplace else. That's all I have tonight.
Alderman Shadle?
Thank you. Nothing really else that I can say that hasn't been said. Thank you, and thank you, Chief, and to all you men and women.
Move on to item number 26, which is public comment. We have 3 individuals that have signed in. Brad Grant, if you would take the podium, you have 3 minutes.
I'm here to address the shooting issues. Wendy Pearson, I was at her house on Sunday when just a block away at Franken State, there was a shooting there. And that's when I said to her, we need to, and we'd heard, also had heard about the shooting on Friday. I had some friends that were at Elk and Walnut for that shooting too. And that's when I became very concerned with this rise in shootings all of a sudden. I said to Wendy, we need to come tonight to this meeting and see what's going on and see, because I think this is something the city needs to do too, is be proactive on dealing with these issues, not being reactive to like the police do, because that's their job, to be reactive more than proactive. And that's why I'm here tonight with Wendy, to see what we can do to be proactive on this issue. There was also a comment about landlords. I'm also a landlord, and I know there is the crime-free addendum in our leases that's required by the city that gives some teeth to when there are ordinance violations. We can immediately evict tenants if they're doing things like that for noise or whatever. I keep an eye on my properties. I'm also a member of FALA, which is the Freeport Area Landlord Association. That's something that we've all adopted, and I believe that the good landlords do keep an eye on their properties, and we do a job of policing that. I found some people sitting on my property at the corner of American and Walnut, and I'm like, what are you guys doing here? And I told them to leave. I said, you're not a tenant, you're not supposed to be here. Oh, we're waiting for somebody. I said, well, go wait somewhere else. This is not a place for that. Some people said they were dealing drugs. I don't know. I just want them off my property. So I think that there are things we can do to be proactive, and that's why I'd like to get this dialogue going tonight, because it concerns us as citizens too.
Thank you. Next signed up is Wendy Pearson.
Good evening. My name is Wendy Pearson, 1254 South Carroll, Freeport, Illinois. I would like to take the city council down memory lane. I want to take you back to 2007. As a matter of fact, December 21st, 2007, when Damian Ship was shot downtown Freeport. I can think of off the top of my head right now 5 people that have been murdered in our streets where the crimes have not been solved. I can give you their names, but I'm not here to do that. I'm here to question what is happening in this city, and I'm here to go backwards and talk to you about what I said to you, Mayor, when you got mad at me. Bullets don't have no eyes. And I stood at this podium and said those words. And I said to you, Ms. Mayor, that you have a daughter. This people had a daughter. I would like to know, and I want to avoid, where is COVID-19 money going? When $5 million has been issued by the state of Illinois for crime prevention and mental health issues. I want to know where Freeport's money is going, COVID money is going, that has been allocated for those purposes. Alderman, you said that we have some options. We've had options. We ran a program down here that slowed the crime down and probably could have stopped it. A couple months ago, we had a meeting with the city that most of you don't know anything about. We have been denied the opportunity to come into this community with ceasefire to stop the violence that is occurring in this community. We sat down with them and had this conversation. I've been having these conversations for 20 years in this town, saying the same thing over and over and over again. And Chief, you're right. This isn't his problem, but it is our problem. These are our children being murdered in the streets. And I'm going to tell you what my biggest disappointment was today, and the superintendent can tell you what I'm talking about. Not a soul in this town went to the high school or the junior high school to comfort our kids. I walked up in there and our kids were on the floor crying and holding each other. Where is our community? Where is our support for our children in the streets? We should be ashamed of ourselves that our kids don't have the comfort that they need in the high school after their friend has been murdered. We have to do better. Bottom line is this is all of our problem. This isn't just happening on the west side and the east side anymore. They're shooting on Greenfield Drive. We're not talking about Met Labs that was on Park Boulevard that was pushed under the rug and nobody said anything about it. But when something happens in our community, it's in the newspaper on the front page. Nobody wants to talk about what is going on in this town. Well, let's be honest. The little girl that was killed, her grandmother is Blondie Clark, one of the best employees the superintendent or any superintendent could have had in the public school system here in Freeport.
Wendy, your time has expired.
It may very well be, but I'm going to say this to you. Wherever the corporate money is going, it should be going in our communities.
Next on the list. Next on the list is Marianne Garvins. Marianne, you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
I thought I signed something else, but that's okay because I can speak to this. So years ago, moved to Freeport in 92 or 94, long enough ago I don't remember. But this has been, I got into landlording as a ministry. And it's pathetic how disinvolved people in this community are with all of our children. Not just the ones in your family, not just the ones in your church. You can go to the school and there should be a mentoring program there where you can adopt a kid, show them some better ways to live, take them on field trips, take them on a family trip to the zoo. But if we're not giving them options and we're not opening their eyes to their possibilities, what more can we expect than what we got? It's neighbors reaching out to neighbors. It's neighborhood watch groups. There's been efforts off and on to get those going, but they failed. I started the Freeport Area Landlord Association many years ago. I'm written out of the history of it. We had 50 people at our first meeting because landlords want to make sure their tenants are safe and that they have options. They're not greedy people. It's hard to be a landlord in this town. They get blamed for everything. And they can only be one place at one time. So there needs to be neighborhood watch groups where people really get engaged, where they get to know the kids, and they can identify who's not from the neighborhood. And they get support from the police when they call them to come and at least walk around the neighborhood and have a presence. You know, we've gotten weed and seed grant money, and I didn't see all the grant money do very much. And that's a shame. That's a real shame. But there should be a better communication between store owners and landlords and people that are invested in multiple areas of the community so they can share what their experiences are and we can come up with ways to provide solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. That takes care of those that have signed in. Is there anyone else that would care to speak? Tommy?
I saw Matt Summers on TV and he looked good on there.
Thanks, Tom.
And Jody Miller, you did. I hope you win the election next year.
Thank you, Tommy.
And you do a good job of that city council meeting. I'm glad you won good, or we want to keep you that way.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Ann Alvarado, Superintendent, Freeport School District.
This weekend was a really difficult weekend for us. Today was especially difficult to see the students grieve the loss of a friend, a colleague. I am not from Freeport, but I am from Freeport. I care deeply about this community and what happens to our children. We're very aware that we have to dig into the root causes of violence, what causes it. It's not a one fix, easy solutions. There's deep-rooted issues that go on in communities. On my end, we really are focusing as well on how do we improve our experience of quality preschool, because we have to start from the very first time that we have our kids, early interventions, our grant funds. Yes, some are for COVID and health, but we're putting a lot of money into mental health for children and families, investing in after-school programs, and making sure that our staff also has access to mental health. I think this is really a call to action for all of us. I'm grateful today for the partnership from the police department. But the truth is, when we solve these kinds of problems, it really starts from grassroots community. When I talk about activism, I'm not talking about Republican versus Democratic activism. I'm talking about understanding that we need to engage in this process. To speak to a mother who lost her child, there's nothing worse. I'll take all the COVID cases, but speaking to a mother who lost her child from senseless violence is not an experience that any superintendent would like to go through. But I'm coming here on behalf of the school board as well, and all the staff who have done everything today to wrap their arms around those children who wept, and just make sure that awareness is one thing, but action truly is what is going to take us. So if there's a call to action here, we are happy as a school district to work with the city council. There are short-term and long-term goals probably that can happen. We can't fix it overnight, but definitely the engagement is important, but looking at our resources, what's possible, and getting our families involved. So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Then we move on to item number 27. Madam Clerk, could you please read the executive session?
Pursuant to 5 ILCS 122C8, security procedures, school building safety and security, and the use of personnel and equipment to respond to an actual, a threatened, or a reasonably potential danger to the safety of employees, students, staff, the public, or public property. Pursuant to 5 ILCS 122C14, informant sources, the hiring or assignment of undercover personnel or equipment, or ongoing prior or future criminal investigations when discussed by a public body with criminal investigatory responsibilities.
Is there a motion to enter into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Misick. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Misick?
Aye.
Berberay?
Aye.
Borneman?
Aye.
Monroe?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
Busker?
Aye.
And Shadle.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.